Hello, everyone. Welcome back to WE3Live, our weekly series on clean tech innovation in energy and water. I'm Erin Otan, Z Prime Senior Director of Research and Content, and I'm excited to introduce today's guests. We've got Kimberly Britton, the CEO of EPIcenter. They're an organization based in San Antonio doing really great work with startups and utilities. And George Hunt, the Chief Strategy Officer at Smart Energy Water. Today, they'll be discussing moving beyond innovation theater to getting the real work of innovation done. Thank you both for being here today. And George, I'll turn things over to you to get the conversation going.
Thank you very much, Erin, and hello everybody, and welcome to We3. Thank you again for being here today. I'm really excited about this one, and I'm really excited to introduce Kimberly. It's great to be here with you on Clean Tech, and you're joining us from San Antonio, Texas, and I'm here in a fairly cold, chilly spring evening in the UK. So how are you doing today?
I am doing well, just a little humid here, but it's good. Life is good.
Fantastic. All right. I think Erin reminded us a little bit about what We3 is about, what the We3 channel is about, and it's a really good global platform that's been established between Z Prime and SEW to raise and discuss some relevant topics linked to clean tech in energy and water. We're aiming to have conversations that matter with global leaders, innovators, and influencers about how we as citizens and how utilities as key stakeholders are responding to the challenges of climate change and sustainability, and also exploring the opportunities offered through innovation. Over the past weeks, we've been hearing a lot about courageous strategies for zero carbon and how they're gaining traction in different parts of the world. We've also heard about how opportunities for digitalization and data insights are making a difference. And we've heard about the need for courage and innovation in order to really make an impact. And today's topic is really closely related to that. It's a topic that's very close to my heart. It's a topic that's given me a few scars over the years, but it's also a topic where the rewards have been very significant and impactful when it's done well. Kimberly and I are planning to explore the topic of innovation reality versus innovation theatre, as Erin mentioned. We're going to try and discover how some energy and utility companies have tried for years to be innovative and perhaps had limited returns. And we're going to discuss also how some companies have taken a different approach and been very courageous, committed, and willing to change the paradigm in order to embrace innovation. So I really hope you find this interesting. I'm absolutely delighted to formally introduce my co-host for today, Kimberly Britton. Kimberly is the Chief Executive Officer of EPIcenter. And when Kimberly and I caught up with each other, we thought we would break this down into three areas. The first area is I've got a short intro and a few speed questions for Kimberly to answer, which will give us a very quick way of sort of understanding much more about where Kimberly is coming from, what a company is doing, what the journey's been like. And then we thought we would go into a bit more detail about some real concrete examples about how EPIcenter has helped utilities sort of deliver value from innovation and accelerate and change the paradigm. And then what we also said we would do is Kimberly's agreed to provide some takeaways at the end so that our listeners can take those away and pick up on those and take them forward. So let's get going. Quick intro from me about EPIcenter. And Kimberly will add more to this, of course, but I'm going to embarrass her for the moment with a fantastic intro. So EPIcenter was founded in 2015 by CPS Energy, Itron, Landis & Gyr, and OCI Solar Power. The organization was conceived to propel energy innovation and thought leadership for our global future with a think tank, incubator, and accelerator, as well as strategic partnerships and critical conversations around energy. Kimberly has led that organization from the start and now leads the organization's efforts to deliver solutions around all of these topics. Under Kimberly's direction, it's been extraordinarily successful and now serves energy-related clients from across the US and beyond. What an amazing journey, Kimberly. We're so fortunate to have you here. Let's start with a few questions to get going. So have you always been interested in energy? And back in 2016, did EPIcenter find you or did you find EPIcenter?
Yes, energy has, if you grow, well, I'm sure there are other people who maybe don't feel this way, but for me, growing up in Texas, it's really hard not to pay attention to energy. My dad tried his hand at some oil and gas investments years ago, and so I think we understood it was a part of our economy, part of our culture. And then I had a stint with Chesapeake Energy, so I got a taste of oil and gas back in the mid 2000s, and then here I am in San Antonio working in the arts at one point in my life, and out of the blue comes this amazing opportunity to really build a startup focused on energy innovation and thought leadership from scratch. So I guess I would say it found me for sure.
Fantastic. And that's very lucky, I know. So as employee number one, you were employee number one. What did you do on your first day at
Oh.
EPIcenter, and then your first week and your first month? So tell us about those really early moments.
Well, that's so great of you to ask. One of the things is that one of our founding partners, CPS Energy, we were releasing office space there. And on my first day, literally, was one, trying to find out where my office was, and two, the day started where I wasn't completely expected by everyone. At that time, they'd given me more time to start, and I was so eager to start that I came. So that was fun, trying to get into a very secure building. But ultimately what I did was I had this incredible luxury to sit in that office overlooking the San Antonio Riverwalk and have whiteboard the future of our organization for that time period. And for the first 90 days, I had absolute thought bandwidth. And it was a luxury that I've never had and have never repeated since. So that was a joy. And I still actually have photographs of that original board that served well and frankly still applies in large part today.
It's interesting, isn't it? With all the digital innovation we've got, how quickly we go back to a flip chart or a whiteboard, because it just allows us to have that open thought. Love that answer. Thank you. What's been the biggest challenge in the past 5 years, and also what has made you most proud when you reflect on what you've achieved?
Oh, those are lovely questions. One, the biggest challenge was that I thought going into this, the board hands me this corporate structure and says, okay, we want you to have, thought leadership and energy innovation, work with startups, do this stuff. And so I knew what the vision was, but the practical application. So I love learning from other people. We're very collaborative at EPIcenter. So I started going to places, other incubators and accelerators, and talking to other think tanks and places. But the challenge was nobody was formulated and constituted exactly like we were or are, because there are great incubators and accelerators. There are great think tanks, and there are great consultants and people working with energy companies. But to house all of that in one operation is really unique, and the synergy and the movement back and forth. So I definitely spent some time learning and studying and adapting. So I would say that's one of the biggest challenges. The other is just getting people to know about us. Here we are in San Antonio, but we finally are getting to the point where we're getting to be known. And then I apologize. What was the second half of the question?
So the other one is what's made you most proud when you reflect on your achievements?
My team.
Your team.
I am the most proud of the people that have been willing to be so courageous. You talk about courage, George. It takes a lot of courage to come in and go, okay, we have ramp money. We don't know how long it's going to last. We've got to do this thing. Well, you want to come to work for us? And let's try this. We're going to be a startup serving other startups and other energy companies. And you want to try this? And I have this amazing group of very courageous team members who are working with us. And I'm super proud of them. So if I get to work with them, then we're doing something right.
Fantastic, and I'm sure they think the same of you as well.
Thank you.
I think you were innovative about how you set it up, and I think you're being innovative about how you, or rather, leadership's about creating the environment for that team to do amazing things, and it's pretty clear that that's what you've done here. So, my next question, I've got two more quick questions for you before we get into the main topic. But knowing what you know now, what would you say to a young Kimberly just starting out in her career?
Don't care so much about what people think of you. And frankly, people aren't thinking of you all that much. That was always really hard. I was so worried about being perfect and spot on. And I still have those tendencies. I do a lot of preparation so I don't feel so nervous for things like this. And yet at the same time, young Kimberly worried way too much about what people thought of her. I love being where I am at this point in my life where I care a whole lot less, but yet I also want to be even more lovely and kind and supportive than I've ever wanted to be in my life.
No, I love that answer, and I think that's very, very, really good advice for lots of people listening. You know, focus on what you can do and what you can control,
Right.
or what you can influence, and not worry so much. So my last question, I can't ask a series of questions like this without asking you where you're going. What's on the horizon for EPIcenter in the next part of your journey?
You know, making sure that we're sustainable. You know, we are a grand experiment with a lot of, we've had a lot of bumpers, but we're at this point where we're coming out of our adolescence. It's time for us to go into our young adulthood as an organization. Can we get a real job? You know, it's that kind of a thing, like many of us experienced in our 20s, where you're trying to, you're now really responsible, and not that we weren't as a young organization, but now we have to make our own living in a way that going beyond, and we're seeing that, right? Our revenue's up and all of that, but it's really about the programs are working. What we're doing is good. We need more reach, we need more partners, but at the same time, it's all about sustainability financially for us.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I, last week on We3, the CEO of Sacramento Municipal Utility District, SMUD, was talking to the CEO of SCW, Deepak Garg. I know that you know Paul Lau and you know SMUD, but when I listened to it, one of the key things, I am in absolute awe of the plan that they've put together and the commitment that they've made to net zero by 2030, etc. Absolute awe, in awe of that. And I think, you know, the world in which we occupy, that we work in, has really sat up and taken notice of that. But the thing that really caught my attention when Paul Lau was summing up the conversation, he said, you know, we can put the best plan together, we can put the best roadmap together, but the two things that actually make a difference here is how do we embrace partnerships and how do we embrace innovation. Now I haven't said it yet, but EPIcenter, EPIcenter, tell me what EPI stands for, Kimberly, and tell me what you think about that courageous plan from SMUD.
Well, I love what he said because it's in our name. We are, EPI stands for Energy, Partnerships, and Innovation. Obviously, I agree wholeheartedly with my friend Paul Lau. It is, we have 80 plus strategic partners of very levels of engagement, from we like you, we want to do something someday, to some very intense research efforts. Without that kind of, we're a small organization, without that kind of relationship and the willingness to not have to make or own everything we do, being able to bring other players to the table makes all the difference for us. And certainly a sincere desire and commitment by the top leadership for innovation. I also know some of his board members also in it with him. That makes a big, big difference in one's success in this area.
No, that's great. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So let's get to the core of this topic. I love the title. I can't claim credit for coming up with the title, but the title is Innovation Reality versus Innovation Theatre. So let me put you straight on the spot here and say, what does that mean to you? What does that convey to you when you hear that as the title? Tell me what innovation is. Tell me what innovation isn't. Tell me what theatre is. You know, I'm intrigued by the title.
Well, I think we as an organization, my team and I, started talking about this when we would see a lot of sound and fury and then no delivery, right? I mean, we've all seen that in different sectors. I have a friend who was a big time fighter pilot in the Air Force, and she always says they call that all thrust and no vector. And I think you see that in the innovation sector. Sometimes it comes out as, I've seen places where they wanted innovation from their employees, and what they got in many cases were process improvement ideas. all worthy endeavors. But in my opinion, that's not in a true innovation. Uh, Innovation has to be something that moves an organization strategically. It's not enough just to make it better, which is an important part of innovation, but it has to fit in with that strategy. And so often what it's not is this lack of strategic match. Someone's fallen in love with a piece of tech or a business model, and they don't see that it's really not moving the organization forward. I think when I see a lack of real world problems to solve, and you have these great ideas, but now what? Where do we land? The other thing I don't like to see is where they give, and I apologize if I'm about to offend someone, but where someone is given a title of innovation as though that singular person is going to be able to deliver on innovation for this company or organization, without building a culture of innovation. Sometimes you need a leader, a point person, absolutely. But to fail to build a culture of that kind of innovation it's a huge risk. So I hate to be negative, but maybe we can talk about what innovation is. It'll go more positive. But having that alignment with strategy, when we're working with someone that's looking to that and become a more innovative organization, the first thing I ask them is, what are the strategies, the core tenets of this organization? Where do you want to be in the future, and what are you trying to achieve? Because if I don't know that, I can't help someone. So we've got to have our vector, yes. And then how do we align what technologies are coming forward, and how do we prioritize them? The other thing, George, that I would say is that, hearing Paul say that, and I'll go back to that about his board and about him and about, in fact, I know some of his leadership team, it takes that commitment from the top to absolutely ensure that the folks within the organization feel supported. But I will tell you, it's not enough. It's critical, but it's not the only factor in all of this. And so there are other aspects of it, getting the right people in the room. I joke that, people always talk about these people who are very tenured, have been around forever. Can they change when we're trying to be innovative? And the truth is there are people who are tenured, but yet they are adaptive. There is a piece of it, maybe it's 10, 20% that are just never going to get on the bus. They're not going to move forward. And you just know what you're going to get. They'll be good, stable people maybe, but they're not going to be innovative for you. But then you also need those new and nimble who don't know really where the, HR is yet. They don't know, but they're still fresh and they're bringing outside perspective. And then, so you have this mix of expertise, subject matter expertise, if you will, and enthusiasm. And if the top is giving you clear strategic objectives, then you're going to get down the road. So I'll stop there.
No, I love that answer. I particularly like the opening statement, all thrust and no vector. I kind of thought you could get all vector and no thrust as well, I guess, without those ingredients that you were talking about. But I also love what you said about, so that you could get a cross sector of participation. The people that actually have knowledge and are willing to sort of be open-minded and change, and the people that probably don't carry the baggage of the past and have come with new paradigms. And we obviously think about millennials and people of that generation coming into organizations and saying, I don't know why we work this way. So, and I think we've all been there through time. But I also really liked what you said about sometimes people will be given a title of chief innovation officer or director of innovation, and they're expected to say, go innovate, go make us innovate. And I think the same about the titles of transformation. Chief transformation officer is really difficult. And it's really about the leadership and the environment that is created and the support that goes behind it. So thank you so much for reinforcing that. So we talked a little bit about innovation. I'd quite like to now move to the topic of energy within, or innovation within energy. And I'm going to quote a statement from your own website. And I think you wrote this statement. So I'm now going to ask you to explain a little bit about it. So the statement from the EPIcenter website caught my attention when I was doing the prep here. And it said, the business of energy is at a crossroads. Energy related companies hang in the balance between tending to the daily business of serving customers in the here and now, and exploring the very innovative technologies that could make their products and services faster, smarter, cleaner, more resilient, and more efficient in the future. I think that's a fantastic statement. Can you share a little bit more about the origins of that statement and what it means to EPIcenter and the people that you're working with?
Yeah, when we were updating our website, and I wrote that with help from my team, of course, but we were seeing when we were created, it was envisioned that we would have a think tank and an incubator, and we actually have a fabrication operation as part of that as well. What was not necessarily foreseen was this piece of our advisory services, our consulting piece. And the reason for that is the basis of this very statement is that I begin to see the struggle of our utility partners in particular, but other energy companies. It's happening in the oil and gas sector as well. There's a lot of disruption going on in energy everywhere. And there was this incredible struggle to keep the lights on, to keep the work affordable, for customers, et cetera. And yet to be able to be innovative in a consistent, de-risked fashion. And so that's why EPIcenter kind of backed into this idea of supporting, and we call it innovation management. It's exactly that, is that we begin to be called upon to get in the weeds with our partners and say, okay, let's organize a way to vet these. It's not just emerging tech, it's emerging business models and ideas. How do we vet this in a way that meets your very regulated needs? They have different, whether you're municipally owned or investor owned, you have specific things with which you have to comply. And it's complicated, and that's why it's not easy. So what we did was come up with a process that we can bring in and adapt to the client's needs, where we help them vet. And part of it's all of that. It works well when you've got high level buy-in. You've got a mid-level group of people willing to take a first look and a first pass and have enough expertise that they can say, yes, this is something we want to know more about. And then to take it through a process that meets the legal needs and the financial needs of all of that, and to do it faster and with a better satisfaction of both the folks being vetted and the employees that are working on this. And so it's been a journey for us, but I saw the pressure coming to bear on these utilities and other energy companies to change. They're being disrupted. How do we, we've got declining use curve, and we've got all this pressure to become more resilient, and renewables are hitting us over the head. What are we doing? And how do we ensure our financial viability? I just really understood that they could not forsake their day jobs, but yet they had to figure out a way to do this and be innovative in spite of it. And that's where this whole thing for us, our advisory services, was born.
Tell me about hearts and minds. I'm a great believer in if you talk to the heart, you win the mind. Tell me about, how do you sell this idea to an organization? How do you inspire a group of people to say, go innovate, it's safe, and give them the courage and the boldness to really align with strategy and create sustainable change?
Well, anyway, I should say this, George, is that it would be arrogant of me and my organization to say that innovation wasn't happening before EPIcenter showed up. That is absolutely a fallacy. Not true. Don't feel that way. Would never presume. That said, is that what was challenging is that process. But what was happening, you have all of these people who work within these amazing, dedicated workforces in the utility space. There are probably no more dedicated, courageous people that work in any area than that. And yet they're thwarted by their own success, if you will, sometimes just by the workload and the challenge of it. And I think the winter storm that we had here in Texas recently is a great example of that. How do you keep that intensity from derailing it? Well, it's a couple of things. One, it's not a hard sell in many cases, because there are always passionate leaders within this that go, we know we need to grow and improve and adopt these new technologies that do get us where we want to be. At the same time, it does take a very strong, powerful internal champion that says, I understand that this is hard. I understand that we may have tried this before, but we've got to stop saying we can't do it for whatever reason. And we've got to say, how can we do it? And that's the thing that I will tell you, the folks that I see who are most successful have that internal champion. It could be the CEO, it could be someone who's in senior leadership, but it really takes that. I will tell you, Paula Gold-Williams is a great example of that at CPS Energy. She's obviously one of our founders and is a CEO of that municipally owned utility. And it really does take, as innovative as CPS is, and it's incredibly well respected, as you know, it takes her also kind of helping her team. They're so constrained by so many regulations and rules as a municipally owned utility, but it does take her inspiring and saying, guys, we can do this. We can figure a path that's appropriate to us and a cost that could be afforded. And that's what it takes.
No, I love that. My own experience is, I've been in organizations where there's been plenty of great new ideas, plenty of what you might think of as innovation, but the organizational culture and the organizational processes and maybe regulation as well just knows how to suck the oxygen out of a good idea. And it's really refreshing to hear what you said there. You mentioned CPS Energy, and I'm very conscious that the time is ticking away terribly fast. And I want to give you time to give some takeaways. But you mentioned CPS Energy, and I feel like we can't have this conversation without me giving you the opportunity to say, how amazing have your sponsors been in terms of setting EPIcenter up? So CPS Energy, Itron, Landis+Gyr, and IPC Solar, etc.
Amazing support. I will tell you, one of the things early on I said about my team, one of my most proud of, I will tell you the other thing is had I not had a board, because I've been an executive director or CEO before, when you have a board that is so supportive and allows you to experiment with things in a safe environment, that makes such a big difference. And all of those folks have representatives on my board, and it's been phenomenal. And not only do their representative support, they have folks within their organizations who are incredibly supportive and helpful. And we've developed some amazing educational programming and partnerships and collaborations with those. So I appreciate them more than they could probably ever know, but I try to tell them. So
that's so inspiring. I've worked for amazing boards as well, and I've worked for not amazing boards, and the difference is chalk and cheese. So it's really great to hear that. So the time is ticked away. We've only got a short time back, but I would really like to give you the opportunity to say what are the takeaways, because we've got a number of folk listening to this session with us today, thankfully, and I'm keen that we give them something that what are those learning points, takeaway, or what are those experience points that you have. So over to you.
Well, and I will tell you this, I've had such an opportunity to learn, and I thank you for this time to be together. But these are the things I've learned from others and we've learned in our own work. So must-haves for innovation. 1 is executive buy-in and support. I think you've heard me say that. 2 is clear alignment and with organizational strategy. You've got to have it. 3, you need a defined process and some funding to go along with it. Doesn't have to be lavish, just has to be clear. And then 4 is the right team at the table. There's some astute CEOs who know that it doesn't just depend on them. It really does take their folks who are experts in other areas as well. And finally, and it goes back to what you said, George, the right mindset, those hearts and minds.
I love that. That's such a fantastic way for us to conclude our short time together today. I'm so grateful for you taking the time out to do this, and so are SEW, so are Z Prime, I think it's been great to hear about the journey you've been on, the work of your team, the pride that you have in your team has been inspiring as well, and the support from your board. So I just want to say a huge thank you to you for that. And I think on that basis, I think we can hand back to, I think is Laurel or Erin. I'm not sure who's going to take over. I think it may be Erin. So in order to just wrap things up. So thank you very much, Kimberly. That's been really great.
It's a delight, George. Thank you. And thanks, Z Prime.